I was standing in the foyer of my new mansion, my hand on the doorknob, staring at two people I hadn't seen in 12 years. Kenneth looked older. Gray at the temples, lines around his eyes he didn't have before. But that smile was exactly the same. The charming, manipulative smile that used to make me doubt my own reality. And beside him stood Daniel. My son. 30 years old now, no longer the angry 18-year-old who'd told me I ruined our family. He was taller, filled out, had his father's build. But his eyes were the same dark brown I remembered. "Margaret, you're looking well," Kenneth said smoothly. "Prosperity suits you." My heart was pounding so hard I thought they might hear it. 12 years of silence. 12 years of birthday cards returned unopened. 12 years of wondering if my son ever thought about me. And now they were standing on my doorstep. "Hi, Mom," Daniel said quietly. The word mom after all this time should have made me cry. Instead, I felt numb. I didn't respond. Just stood there, holding the door, trying to process what I was seeing. Kenneth's smile widened slightly. "I know it's been a long time. Too long. But we wanted to see you. Congratulations on all your success, by the way. Your sister told us about the company going public. Very impressive." Nina. My sister had been feeding them information. Behind Daniel, a young woman stepped forward. Pretty, confident, blonde hair pulled back in a ponytail. She was carrying a duffel bag. "Mrs. Patterson, I'm Claire. Daniel's girlfriend. I've heard so much about you." I looked at the three of them more carefully. Kenneth had a suitcase beside him. Daniel was holding a backpack and another bag. Claire had her duffel. Luggage. They'd brought luggage to my house. "We know this is unexpected," Kenneth continued when I still didn't speak. "But family is family, right? And we thought, with this beautiful new house of yours, plenty of space, it would be nice if we could all be together again." "Together," I repeated. My voice came out flat. "Daniel and I have been talking," Kenneth said. "About the past. About mistakes that were made. We think it's time to move forward. Put the divorce behind us. Be a family again." Claire nodded enthusiastically. "Family is so important. Daniel talks about you all the time. We're so excited to finally get to know you." I looked at Daniel. He wasn't meeting my eyes. Just staring somewhere past my shoulder into the house behind me. "We've come to stay," Kenneth said, saying out loud what was already obvious. "Just for a while. Until we get sorted out. The house is certainly big enough for all of us." The audacity of it took my breath away. 12 years of silence. 12 years of my son believing every lie his father told about me. And now they were standing here with luggage, expecting to move into my home like nothing had happened. "Daniel," I said, my voice steady despite the chaos in my chest. "Is this what you want? To show up after 12 years and move into my house?" He finally looked at me. I wanted to see you. We wanted to reconnect. And things have been hard lately. Dad thought maybe. Things have been hard, I repeated. The economy, Kenneth jumped in. You know how it is. I've had some setbacks. And Daniel's between jobs at the moment. We thought family should help family. The picture was becoming clear. Kenneth was broke. Daniel needed money. And they'd heard about my success and decided I was the solution to their problems. "So you want to move in," I said. "All three of you. Into my house." "Just temporarily," Kenneth said. "Until we get back on our feet. You have 6 bedrooms. It's not like you need all this space just for yourself." I looked at each of them in turn. Kenneth with his manipulative smile. Daniel who still wouldn't hold my gaze. Claire who looked at my house like she was already decorating it in her mind. 12 years ago, Kenneth had destroyed my life. Turned my son against me. Left me with nothing but debt and heartbreak. I'd spent 12 years rebuilding. Working 16-hour days. Building a business from scratch. Clawing my way back from the bottom. And now he was standing on my doorstep, expecting me to open my home and my wallet because family helps family. I took a breath. Let it out slowly. "No." The single word hung in the air. Kenneth's smile faltered. "I'm sorry." "No," I repeated, my voice clearer now. Stronger. "You're not moving in. You're not staying. You're not welcome here." Kenneth's expression shifted. Surprise replacing the charm. "Margaret, be reasonable." "I am being reasonable." You show up unannounced after 12 years with luggage, expecting to move into my home. That's not reasonable. That's entitled. Daniel spoke up. Mom, please. Just hear us out. I don't need to hear anything. I know exactly what this is. Kenneth's face was hardening now, the mask slipping. After everything I did for you, I made you respectable. I gave you a good life. You gave me nothing I didn't earn, I interrupted. Now leave. Or I call the police. Kenneth stared at me like he couldn't believe what he was hearing. Like he'd expected me to fall apart or welcome them with open arms. Claire looked between them confused. But we drove all this way. That's not my problem. Daniel's face had gone pale. Mom, wait. Can we at least talk? Just you and me. I looked at my son, the child I'd raised. The boy who'd chosen to believe his father's lies instead of giving me a single chance to defend myself. We can talk, I said. But not about you moving in. That's not happening. Kenneth's jaw clenched. You'll regret this. The only thing I regret is opening this door. I stepped back and started to close it. Mom, Daniel's voice cracked. Please. I paused. Looked at him one more time. You had 12 years to contact me, Daniel. 12 years while I sent you cards you sent back. 12 years while I rebuilt my entire life from nothing. You don't get to show up now with your father and your girlfriend and expect me to fix your problems. I closed the door. Stood there with my hand on the wood, listening to muffled voices outside. Kenneth's angry tone. Daniel saying something I couldn't make out. Claire's higher voice asking what they were going to do now. I waited for them to ring the doorbell again. To knock. To demand entry. Instead, I heard footsteps retreating. Car doors opening and closing. An engine starting. I went to the window and watched them drive away. Daniel looked back at the house once before the car turned the corner and disappeared. Then I was alone in my beautiful mansion. The house I'd bought with money I'd earned. In the life I'd built without them. I should have felt victorious. Strong. Proud of myself for setting boundaries. Instead, I sank onto my couch and put my head in my hands. Because the truth was, I'd been waiting 12 years to see my son again. And when he finally showed up, I'd sent him away. Let me take you back to where this all started. To 12 years ago, when my world fell apart and I learned exactly what my husband and son were capable of. 12 years ago, I was standing in my kitchen making dinner when my entire life changed. I was 40 years old. A stay-at-home mother who'd given up a promising career in marketing to raise Daniel and support Kenneth's career in corporate sales. We lived in a nice 4-bedroom house in the suburbs. Had 2 cars. Took vacations every summer. From the outside, we looked like the perfect family. I'd been cleaning out Kenneth's home office that afternoon, organizing papers while he was at work. That's when I found the credit card statements tucked in the back of a drawer. A card I didn't know existed. Charges at expensive restaurants I'd never been to. Hotels in cities Kenneth claimed were business trips. Jewelry purchases from stores I'd never visited. Flowers I'd never received. Thousands of dollars over 6 months. My hands shook as I read through them. There was a charge from the Riverside Inn, a boutique hotel 20 minutes from our house. On a Tuesday. Kenneth had been home that Tuesday. Said he was working from home. Another charge at Marco's, the Italian restaurant where we'd had our anniversary dinner 3 years ago. Kenneth said he'd been too busy with work to celebrate this year. The evidence was there. Clear. Undeniable. He was having an affair. When Kenneth came home, I was sitting at the kitchen table with the statements spread out in front of me. Daniel was upstairs doing homework. I'd waited until he couldn't hear us. What are these? I asked, my voice surprisingly steady. Kenneth looked at the papers, and for just a second, his face went blank. Then he recovered, setting down his briefcase with a sigh. You went through my things. What are these charges, Kenneth? Business expenses. I've been entertaining clients. At the Riverside Inn? For 3 hours in the middle of a Tuesday. It was a lunch meeting that ran long. You were home that Tuesday. I made you lunch. His expression hardened. Are you calling me a liar? I'm asking you to explain $5,000 in charges at romantic restaurants and hotels. We argued for an hour. He denied everything at first, then got angry that I'd invaded his privacy. Finally, when I wouldn't back down, he switched tactics. Fine. Yes. I've been seeing someone. Are you happy now? The words hit like a physical blow even though I'd known they were coming. Why? I asked. Because you're not the woman I married anymore, Margaret. You let yourself go. Stopped caring about your appearance. Became boring. All you talk about is Daniel and grocery shopping and neighborhood gossip. I raised our son. I supported your career. I kept our home. You became a housewife. I needed a partner. Someone interesting. Someone who challenges me. The cruelty in his voice was shocking. This wasn't the man I'd married. Or maybe it was, and I just never seen it before. I want counseling, I said. We can fix this. I don't want to fix it. I want a divorce. The word hung in the air between us. You're serious. Completely. I've already talked to a lawyer. You'll get the house, some alimony. We'll split custody of Daniel, though he's 18 now, so that's mostly symbolic. He'd already talked to a lawyer. He'd planned this. This wasn't a spontaneous confession. This was calculated. Does Daniel know? I asked. Not yet. I'll tell him this weekend. We'll tell him together. No. I'll tell him. You'll just make it emotional and messy. That should have been my first warning. But I was too shocked to argue. Kenneth moved out that weekend into an apartment across town. He sat Daniel down on Sunday and told him we were getting divorced. I wasn't there. Kenneth said it would be easier that way. When Daniel came home from his father's apartment that evening, he wouldn't look at me. Daniel, I know Dad told you about the divorce. He told me everything, Daniel said, his voice cold. About your affair. I felt the room tilt. My affair? Daniel, I didn't have an affair. Your father did. That's not what he said. He said you've been seeing someone from your book club. That he found out and confronted you, and you're trying to flip it and blame him instead. That's not true. Daniel, I found credit card statements. He showed me statements too. Hotel charges near our house. He said it was proof. My mind raced. What hotel? The Riverside Inn. Multiple times. The same hotel from Kenneth's secret credit card. He'd manipulated the evidence somehow. Probably showed Daniel partial statements, made it look like my name was on the account. Daniel, those charges are your father's. From his affair. He's lying to you. Why would he lie? Because he doesn't want to be the bad guy. Daniel backed away from me. Dad said you'd say that. That you'd try to manipulate me. I can't believe you'd lie about something like this. I'm not lying. Your father is the one. Stop. Daniel shouted. Just stop. You ruined our family and now you're trying to make Dad look bad. I don't want to hear it. He went to his room and slammed the door. I tried to talk to him over the next few days. He wouldn't listen. Kenneth had gotten to him first, poisoned the well. Everything I said sounded like excuses. Kenneth filed for divorce the following week. His lawyer painted me as an unstable woman making false accusations about a faithful husband. They had witnesses, Kenneth's friends, who testified that I'd seemed paranoid lately, overly suspicious. The affair partner never came up because they'd been careful. No photos, no witnesses, nothing I could prove. The divorce took 4 months. It was ugly and expensive. Kenneth fought me on everything. The settlement was terrible. I got the house, but had to refinance to give him half the equity. Minimal alimony because our marriage was only 16 years and I was capable of working. I got shared custody of Daniel, but he was 18 and legally could choose. He chose his father. Kenneth had paid for Daniel's college in full. Bought him a car. Set him up in a nice apartment near campus. Made himself the generous, loving father. Meanwhile, he told Daniel I was bitter, vindictive, trying to keep them apart. Daniel believed every word. The last time I saw my son during that period was 3 months after the divorce finalized. I'd begged him to meet me for coffee. He finally agreed, probably to get me to stop asking. We met at a Starbucks near his campus. He sat across from me with his arms crossed, defensive before I even spoke. Daniel, please just listen to me, I started. Your father lied about everything. The affair was his, not mine. I can prove it if you'll just look at the evidence. Dad warned me you'd try this. That you'd make up elaborate stories to turn me against him. I'm not making anything up. You're trying to manipulate me. Just like you manipulated the whole divorce. You couldn't accept that Dad found someone who actually made him happy. He cheated on me. On our family. No, you did. And you can't handle that I'm not falling for your lies. I reached across the table for his hand. He pulled away. I'm done, Mom. I can't do this anymore. You need to accept that Dad and I have a relationship and you're not part of it. Daniel, you're my son. I love you. If you loved me, you wouldn't try to poison me against my father. He stood up and walked out. I sat in that Starbucks for an hour afterward, crying into my cold coffee, while other customers pretended not to notice. That was 12 years ago. Daniel blocked my number after that. Returned my letters unopened. Refused to see me. And Kenneth had won. He destroyed my marriage, turned my son against me, and walked away looking like the victim. I was 40 years old, alone, nearly broke, with no recent work experience, and a son who hated me. That's where my story should have ended. But it didn't. Because I made a decision that day in the Starbucks. I would survive this. I would rebuild. And I would never, ever let Kenneth or anyone else make me feel worthless again. I just had no idea it would take 12 years before I'd see my son again. Or that when I finally did, he'd be standing on my doorstep asking to move in. The rebuilding started with $3,847. That's what was left in my bank account 1 month after the divorce was finalized. The house payment was due in 2 weeks. I needed groceries. The electric bill sat unopened on the counter because I was afraid to look at it. I was 40 years old with a bachelor's degree in marketing from 20 years ago and no recent work experience. I'd left my job when Daniel was born, thinking I'd go back eventually. Eventually never came. Kenneth's alimony payments covered about half my expenses. I needed income. Fast. I took the first job I could find. Cashier at Anderson's Grocery on Main Street. $7.25 an hour. 20 hours a week to start. The first day, I stood behind that register in my vest with my name tag, and Linda Morrison came through my line. Linda had been in my book club. Had been at my house dozens of times for coffee. She looked at me with this mixture of pity and smugness that made my skin crawl. Margaret. I heard about the divorce. Such a shame. I scanned her items without responding. Kenneth seems to be doing well, though. I saw him at the Riverside Grill last week with a lovely young woman. Good for him, moving on. She wanted me to react. To break down or get angry. I didn't give her the satisfaction. Your total is $43.17, I said calmly. After she left, I went to the bathroom and cried for 5 minutes. Then I washed my face and went back to my register. I worked at that grocery store for 6 months. Came home every night exhausted and humiliated. Some nights I couldn't sleep, just lay in bed thinking about Daniel. Wondering what he was doing. If he ever thought about me. I sent him birthday cards. Christmas cards. They all came back marked return to sender. The pain of that was worse than the divorce. Worse than the money problems. Worse than everything. But I kept going because I didn't have another choice. At night, after work, I started making soap. It sounds small, maybe even silly. But it had been my grandmother's hobby. She'd taught me when I was young, using natural ingredients and essential oils. I'd been making soap as gifts for years. Friends always said I should sell them. Now I had nothing but time. I bought supplies with money I couldn't really afford to spend. Started experimenting with different scents and ingredients. Lavender and honey. Peppermint and tea tree oil. Oatmeal and vanilla. I made them in my kitchen late at night, pouring the mixture into molds, cutting them into bars, wrapping them in simple brown paper with handwritten labels. 6 weeks later, I took 24 bars to the Saturday Farmers Market downtown. Rented a small table space for $20. I sold out in 3 hours. The next week, I brought 4 dozen. Sold out again. People liked them. Really liked them. They came back asking for specific scents. Told their friends. Started requesting lotions and lip balms too. Within 3 months, I was making more from soap sales than from the grocery store. I quit the cashier job and focused on production full-time. It was terrifying. I had no safety net, no backup plan. But I worked harder than I'd ever worked in my life. By the end of the first year, I had a small booth at 3 different farmers markets. A growing online presence through a basic website I'd built myself using YouTube tutorials. That's when I met Grace. She had the booth next to mine at the Riverside Market, selling handmade pottery. Beautiful bowls and mugs and vases with earth-tone glazes. We started talking during the slow morning hours. Found out we were both rebuilding our lives. She'd gone through a difficult divorce 5 years earlier. Understood what I was going through. "Your soaps are really good," she said one Saturday. "Have you thought about expanding? Getting into stores?" I wouldn't know where to start. I have some contacts. Store owners who might be interested. And I was thinking, what if we combined products? Your soaps and my pottery dishes? Could be a nice gift set. We tried it the next week. Sold 12 sets at $35 each. That partnership changed everything. Grace became my business partner and my closest friend. She handled wholesale relationships while I focused on production. We rented a small commercial space to work out of. Hired our first employee. By year 3, Pure Nature Skincare was in 20 boutique stores across the state. I moved production out of my kitchen into the rented space. Developed new product lines, lotions, bath salts, face creams. All natural, all handmade, all building on my grandmother's original recipes. The business grew slowly but steadily. I reinvested every penny of profit. Worked 16-hour days. Had no life outside of work. But work was safe. Work was something I controlled. Through it all, I thought about Daniel constantly. Wondered if he knew what I was building. If he cared. If he ever regretted cutting me off. I kept sending cards for 5 years. All came back unopened. Finally, I stopped. It hurt too much. But I followed him online through a fake social media account. Watched him graduate college. Get his first job. Move to different cities. I knew he was alive and okay. That had to be enough. By year 5, we were doing $2 million in annual revenue. I hired 30 employees. Moved to a real manufacturing facility. By year 8, we hit $15 million. I paid myself a decent salary for the first time. Bought a small condo. Started feeling like maybe I'd actually made it. But I was lonely. My whole life was work. The only person I spent time with was Grace. No dating, no hobbies, no real friends outside the business. I told myself I was fine, that I didn't need anything else. But at night, in my quiet condo, I'd look at old photos of Daniel as a child and feel the emptiness of everything I'd lost. Year 10, a major beauty corporation offered to buy Pure Nature for $50 million. I almost took it. Almost cashed out and retired. But Grace talked me out of it. "We can do better. Take the company public. You'll make more and keep control." It took a year to prepare. Working with investment bankers. Getting finances in order. Building the right team. The IPO happened on a Tuesday in September. I stood on the floor of the stock exchange and watched Pure Nature's stock price climb. By end of day, my ownership stake was worth $127 million. I was 52 years old. 12 years after losing everything, I was genuinely wealthy. Grace hugged me on the trading floor. "You did it. You actually did it." "We did it," I corrected. That weekend, I went house hunting. Not because I needed a bigger place, but because I wanted to prove to myself that I'd really made it. That the woman Kenneth had left broke and humiliated had become someone he never imagined I could be. I found the mansion 3 weeks later. 6 bedrooms, pool, home office, more space than I'd ever need. I bought it with cash. Moving in should have felt triumphant. Instead, it felt empty. 6 bedrooms. All for me. No family to fill them. No son to share my success with. I stood in that huge house 2 days after moving in and realized that all the money in the world couldn't fix what I'd really lost. That's when the doorbell rang. I opened it expecting a delivery. Instead, I found Kenneth and Daniel standing there with luggage. And suddenly, 12 years of grief and anger and success all collided in a single moment. After I closed the door on Kenneth and Daniel, I stood in my foyer for a full minute, listening to the silence. They hadn't left. I could hear voices outside. Muffled, but getting louder. Kenneth's tone was sharp, annoyed. Daniel said something I couldn't make out. A woman's voice, Claire, asked what they were going to do now. I moved to the side window and watched through the curtain. Kenneth was pacing beside their car, gesturing angrily. Daniel leaned against the passenger door, his head down. Claire stood with her arms crossed, looking at my house like she was personally offended by it. Kenneth pulled out his phone. Made a call. I couldn't hear what he was saying, but his body language was aggressive. Entitled. After 10 minutes, Daniel broke away from the group and walked back toward my door. He rang the bell. I almost didn't answer. Almost let him stand there. But something made me open the door again. We stood facing each other. My son, 12 years older. A stranger wearing a familiar face. Can we talk? He asked. Just you and me? I looked past him at Kenneth, who was watching from the car. Not here, I said. Come inside. Daniel glanced back at his father, then followed me in. I led him to the living room and sat in one of the leather chairs. He sat on the couch, perched on the edge like he might need to run. Your father's not invited, I said. I know. But you came with him anyway. Daniel looked at his hands. I didn't know what else to do. You could have called. Written. Sent a message. Anything other than showing up with luggage expecting to move in. Would you have answered if I'd called? The question hit harder than I expected. I don't know. Maybe not at first. But I would have eventually. Dad said you wouldn't. That you'd been bitter for years and wouldn't want to hear from me. And you believed him. Again. Daniel flinched. He's my father. And I'm your mother. But that didn't stop you from cutting me out of your life for 12 years. I was 18. You're 30 now. You've been an adult for 12 years, Daniel. At any point, you could have questioned his story. Could have reached out. But you didn't. Until now. Until you need something. He was quiet for a long time. Things have been hard lately. I heard. Your father mentioned you're between jobs. I got laid off 3 months ago. Tech industry downsizing. I've been looking, but nothing's working out. And Kenneth. Daniel's jaw tightened. His second marriage ended badly. His wife's family had money. When they divorced, he didn't get much. He's living in a studio apartment, can barely afford it. I felt nothing hearing this. No satisfaction. No sympathy. Just emptiness. So you're both broke, I said. And you heard about my success. Nina told us. About your company going public. About this house. Dad thought I'd be an easy solution to his problems. It's not like that. Then what is it like? Daniel stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the expansive backyard. This is a huge house. 6 bedrooms. Just for you. Would it really be so terrible if we stayed for a while? Just until we got back on our feet. Yes. It would be terrible. He turned to face me. Why? We're family. Are we? Family doesn't disappear for 12 years. Family doesn't believe lies without asking questions. Family doesn't show up with luggage expecting handouts. I'm your son. And you haven't acted like it since you were 18 years old. The words came out louder than I intended. Daniel stepped back like I'd hit him. I took a breath, forcing myself to stay calm. Do you have any idea what the last 12 years have been like for me? I can imagine. No, you can't. You have no idea what it's like to lose your entire family in a single year. To have your husband cheat on you, turn your child against you, and leave you with nothing. Dad said you had the affair. Your father lied. I stood up now too, facing him. He cheated on me with someone from his office. I found the credit card statements. He manipulated evidence to make it look like it was me. And you believed him without even asking for my side of the story. Daniel's face was red. Why would he do that? Because he's a narcissist who couldn't handle being the bad guy. Because it was easier to destroy my reputation than admit what he'd done. You're saying he lied about everything? Yes. For 12 years. Yes. Daniel sat back down heavily. I don't know what to believe anymore. That's convenient. You didn't know what to believe 12 years ago either, so you chose him. Now you don't know what to believe, but you still showed up here asking to move in. Seems like you only question things when the answers might cost you something. He looked up at me with wounded eyes. That's not fair. None of this is fair, Daniel. It wasn't fair when you cut me out of your life. It wasn't fair when I sent you birthday cards for 5 years and you returned them all. It wasn't fair when I rebuilt my entire life from nothing while you lived off your father's money and believed his lies. I didn't know. Because you didn't ask. You didn't want to know. It was easier to have a villain to blame than to accept that your father was flawed. We stood there in my living room, 12 years of hurt and anger filling the space between us. I'm sorry, Daniel said finally, his voice barely above a whisper. For what specifically? For believing him. For not giving you a chance to explain. Are you sorry you cut me off? Or are you sorry that you're broke now and need my help? His face crumpled. That's cruel. Is it? Because from where I'm standing, you didn't come here to apologize or reconnect. You came here because you need a place to stay. And that feels pretty cruel to me. Daniel walked back to the window, his shoulders hunched. Claire's idea was to all move in together. She thought you'd want family around. That you'd be lonely in this big house. Claire, who I've never met, thought she knew what I wanted. She researched you online. Found articles about your company. She said we should reach out, that family helps family. The picture was getting clearer. Let me guess. Claire has student loans. He nodded. $60,000. We've been struggling to make payments. And your father convinced you that I owed you something. That I should want to help. He said you'd made it big, and we shouldn't be struggling when you have so much. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Daniel, I made it big because I worked 16-hour days for 12 years. Because I built something from nothing with my own hands. Your father destroyed my life and left me broke. Everything I have, I earned without him. Without you. I don't owe either of you anything. I know that. I do. But you're my mom. Doesn't that count for something? It counted for something 12 years ago when I begged you to listen to me and you walked away. It counted for something when I sent you cards and you sent them back. It counted for something every birthday and Christmas I spent alone. But you didn't care about being my son then. I was confused. Dad was so convincing. Stop blaming your father for your choices. You were an adult. You chose to believe him. Chose to cut me off. Those were your decisions. Daniel's eyes were wet now. So that's it? You're just done with me forever. I didn't say that. Then what are you saying? I sat back down, suddenly exhausted. I'm saying you don't get to walk back into my life like nothing happened. You don't get to show up with your broke father and your girlfriend expecting me to solve all your problems. If you want a relationship with me, it has to be real. Not based on money or convenience. I do want a relationship with you. Then prove it. How? Before I could answer, there was pounding on the front door. Kenneth's voice called out, Daniel. We need to talk. Now. Daniel looked at the door, then back at me. I should go. Yes, you should. He walked toward the foyer, then stopped. Can I call you? To talk more. I don't know. Can you? Or will your father tell you not to? His face flushed with either shame or anger, I couldn't tell which. He left without another word. I watched through the window as Kenneth grabbed Daniel's arm, pulling him toward the car. They argued. Kenneth gestured angrily at my house. Claire stood between them, clearly stressed. Finally, they got in the car and drove away. And I was alone again in my mansion. My phone rang. Grace. Nina just called me in a panic, she said. She told Kenneth where you live. I'm so sorry. Are you okay? They came. Kenneth, Daniel, and Daniel's girlfriend. They wanted to move in. Please tell me you said no. I said no. Good. That's good. How do you feel? I looked around my empty living room. Ask me tomorrow. They didn't leave town. I found out the next morning when Nina called, crying. Margaret, I'm so sorry. I didn't know Kenneth was going to show up like that. He called asking where you lived, said Daniel wanted to reconnect, and I thought. You thought giving my address to my ex-husband was a good idea? He said Daniel missed you. That they wanted to make things right. They wanted to move in, Nina. Showed up with luggage. Silence on the other end. Then, oh God. I'm so stupid. Yes, you are. They're staying at the Comfort Inn on Route 9. Kenneth called me this morning asking if I could talk to you. Convince you to reconsider. Tell him no. Margaret, he's family. He's my ex-husband who destroyed my life. He's not family. And if you talk to him again without my permission, you won't be either. I hung up before she could respond. For the rest of the day, I tried to focus on work. Grace came over with takeout for dinner, and we sat in my kitchen reviewing quarterly projections for the company. You're distracted, she said after I'd asked her to repeat something for the third time. I keep thinking about Daniel. About what he said. What did he say? That he was confused. That Kenneth was convincing. That he wants a relationship with me now. Now that you're rich. That's what I said. But he seemed genuine. Hurt. Grace set down her fork. Margaret, I'm going to say something you might not want to hear. When has that stopped you? Daniel is 30 years old. He's not a confused kid anymore. He made choices. He can claim Kenneth manipulated him, but at some point, he became responsible for his own decisions. I know that. Do you? Because you have that look on your face. The one that says you're considering giving him another chance. He's my son. And you're allowed to protect yourself. Even from him. We ate in silence for a while. Then my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Mom, it's Daniel. Got your number from Nina. Can we please talk? Just the two of us, without Dad. I showed Grace the message. What are you going to do? She asked. I don't know. I didn't respond to the text that night. Or the next morning. But it stayed in my mind, that small word at the beginning. Mom. The second day after their arrival, a letter came in the mail. Hand-delivered to my mailbox. No stamp. Daniel's handwriting on the envelope. I sat at my kitchen table for 10 minutes before opening it. The letter was 5 pages, front and back. His handwriting was messier than I remembered, rushed. He wrote about the divorce. About being 18 and watching his family fall apart. About how Kenneth had been his hero, the dad who came to his baseball games, who taught him to drive, who talked about him following in his footsteps in business. When Dad told me you'd had an affair, it broke something in me. The idea that you'd destroy our family like that. I was so angry. And Dad kept saying you'd try to manipulate me, that you'd lie and twist things. So when you tried to talk to me, I heard his voice in my head telling me not to listen. He wrote about college. About the jobs he'd had and lost. About meeting Claire 2 years ago. She's the one who suggested reaching out to you. She found articles about your company online. Said we should reconnect. I wanted to. I really did. But I was scared. Scared you'd hate me. Scared I'd waited too long. He wrote about Kenneth's financial troubles. Dad's second wife divorced him 18 months ago. She came from money, and when the marriage ended, she took most of it. He's been struggling since. Living in a cheap apartment. Working sales jobs that don't last. He's not the successful man I thought he was. The letter continued. When Claire suggested we all move in with you, I knew it was wrong. But Dad was so convincing. He said you'd made it big and we shouldn't be struggling when family has resources. He said you'd want to help, that it was what families do. I know showing up like that was terrible. I know it looked like we just wanted your money. And maybe that's part of it. I'm not going to lie and say money isn't a factor. But it's not the only factor. I've been thinking about you for years. Wondering if I made a mistake. Wondering if Dad lied about everything. I hired a private investigator 6 months ago to find out the truth about the divorce. My hands started shaking. The investigator found records of Dad's affair. Hotel stays. Credit card charges. He even found the woman Dad was seeing. Her name is Jennifer. She confirmed everything. Dad lied about all of it. You were telling the truth the whole time. The words blurred as tears filled my eyes. I've known for 6 months that I was wrong. That I chose the wrong parent. That I let Dad turn me against you for no reason except his own ego. I was too ashamed to reach out. Too embarrassed to admit I'd been so wrong for so long. Then Claire pushed me to come here, and I convinced myself it was a good idea. That maybe we could start over. But I know now that showing up asking to move in wasn't starting over. It was using you. I don't know if you can ever forgive me. I don't know if I deserve forgiveness. But I needed you to know the truth. I know Dad lied. I know you were the victim. And I'm sorry I didn't believe you 12 years ago. The letter ended with, I don't expect you to let us move in. I don't even expect you to want a relationship with me. But if you're willing to talk, just the two of us, I'd like to try. No Dad. No Claire. Just us. I'm staying at the Comfort Inn, room 237. I'll be here for 3 more days. After that, I'll leave and won't bother you again. I love you, Mom. I never stopped. Even when I was too stupid and stubborn to show it. Daniel. I read the letter 3 times. Then I called Grace. He knew, I said when she answered. For 6 months, Daniel's known the truth about the divorce. He hired an investigator, found proof that Kenneth lied. And he's just now telling you this? He says he was ashamed, too embarrassed to reach out, but not too embarrassed to show up asking to move in? Grace, I'm sorry, but that's convenient. He finds out you were telling the truth, sits on that information for 6 months, then shows up at your mansion with luggage? That doesn't seem genuine to you. He's my son, and that doesn't make him honest. Margaret, please be careful. You've worked so hard to build this life. Don't let them destroy it. After we hung up, I sat with the letter for a long time. Daniel knew the truth. Had known for months. But he hadn't reached out until he needed something. That should have been enough to write him off. To let him leave after 3 days and never contact him again. But he was my son. And I'd been waiting 12 years to hear him say he was sorry. I picked up my phone and texted the number he'd used earlier. Tomorrow, 2 p.m. Coffee shop on Main Street. Just you. If your father shows up, I'm leaving. The response came within seconds. Thank you. I'll be there. Alone. I promise. I set down my phone and stared at the letter again, at my son's handwriting, at the words, I love you, Mom. Grace was right to be cautious. But she hadn't spent 12 years missing her child. Tomorrow, I'd find out if Daniel really meant what he wrote. Or if this was just another manipulation in a long line of them. I arrived at the coffee shop 15 minutes early and chose a table in the corner where I could see the entrance. My hands were shaking so badly I had to set down my coffee to keep from spilling it. Daniel walked in exactly at 2. Alone. He looked nervous, scanning the room until he spotted me. He was wearing a button-down shirt instead of the casual clothes from before. Like he'd dressed up for this. He got coffee and sat down across from me. Neither of us spoke for a moment. Thank you for coming, he finally said. I read your letter. I meant every word. You knew the truth for 6 months. Why didn't you call? He looked down at his coffee. Because I didn't know what to say. How do you apologize for 12 years? How do you admit you were completely wrong about everything? You start with the truth. You pick up the phone and you say it. I was scared you wouldn't answer. That you'd hang up on me. So instead you showed up with your father asking to move in? That was your solution. No. That was Claire's solution. And Dad's. They convinced me it would work, that you'd want us there. And you believed them. Again. Just like you believed Kenneth 12 years ago. Daniel flinched. I know. I know I'm weak. I know I let people manipulate me. But I'm trying to do better. Are you? Because from where I'm sitting, you're still making excuses. I'm not making excuses. I'm trying to explain. There's no explanation that makes it okay, Daniel. You had proof I was telling the truth. You sat on that information for 6 months. Then you showed up at my house with the man who lied to you, expecting me to just welcome you in. His eyes were wet now. I know it was wrong. I know I handled everything wrong. I'm not good at this, at confrontation or difficult conversations. I avoid things. I let other people make decisions. I'm working on it, but I'm not there yet. Then why are you here? Because you're my mother. Because I wasted 12 years believing lies. Because I want a chance to know you again. You want a chance. What about what I want? What do you want? I thought about that. What did I want? For 12 years, I'd wanted my son back. Wanted him to realize the truth and come back to me. But now that he was here, it felt complicated. Messy. I want you to be honest with me, I said finally. Completely honest. No more hiding behind what other people told you to do. Okay. Why did you really come here? Not the version Claire or Kenneth sold you. Your truth. Daniel was quiet for a long time. When he spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. Because I'm broke and scared and I thought maybe you'd help me. And because I missed you. Both things are true. I wish I could say it was just about wanting you back in my life, but I'd be lying. The money was part of it. The honesty hurt, but at least it was real. Thank you for saying that. Does that mean you hate me? No. It means I understand where we really stand. I do want a relationship with you, Mom. Not just for money. I want to know who you are now. I want you to know who I am. Even if I'm kind of a mess right now. What about Kenneth? Where does he fit in all this? Daniel's jaw tightened. After I read the investigator's report, I confronted him. Asked him why he lied about everything. You know what he said? What? That he did what he had to do to win the divorce. That it was just strategy. He didn't even seem sorry. And you still came here with him. Because he had nowhere else to go and I felt guilty. He's my father. He paid for my college, supported me. Even if he lied about you, he was still there for me in other ways. He was there for you with money he should have split with me in the divorce. Money he got by destroying my reputation. Daniel nodded slowly. I'm starting to see that. Starting to see how manipulative he's been my whole life. But it's hard. He's still my dad. I understand that. But Daniel, you need to understand something too. I can't have Kenneth in my life. Not even tangentially. If you want a relationship with me, it can include him. You're asking me to choose between you. No. I'm setting a boundary. You can have whatever relationship you want with your father. But he's not welcome in my home. Not welcome at family dinners if we ever get there. Not part of my life in any way. That feels harsh. He turned you against me for 12 years. Lied about me. Destroyed my reputation. Now he's broke and thinks he deserves my help? No. I have every right to protect myself from him. Daniel nodded. Okay, that's fair. Can you actually do that? Or will he convince you I'm being unreasonable? I don't know. I want to say yes, but I've never been good at standing up to him. At least he was being honest. What about Claire? I asked. We broke up. 2 days ago. After you sent us away. She said I was weak for not pushing harder to stay at your house. That I should have made you feel guilty about abandoning me as a kid. When I told her that wasn't fair, that you didn't abandon me, we fought. She finally admitted she'd been pushing the whole reconcile with your rich mom thing from the beginning. I'm sorry. Don't be. You were right about her. She was using me to get to your money. We sat in silence for a moment. The coffee shop buzzed with conversation around us. So where does this leave us? Daniel asked. I don't know. I'm not ready to have you in my life like nothing happened. But I'm not ready to write you off completely either. What would you be comfortable with? I thought about it. Phone calls. Once a month. First Sunday. We talk for 30 minutes. That's it. Just once a month? Daniel, we're essentially strangers now. We need to rebuild slowly. Can we meet in person sometimes? Maybe eventually. But not yet. And not if Kenneth is anywhere nearby. What if I need help? With job searching or... No. This isn't about me helping you. This is about rebuilding a relationship. The minute you ask me for money or favors, we're done. His face fell. That seems extreme. It's a boundary. If you can't respect it, then we can't do this. What if I really need something? What if there's an emergency? Then you figure it out like any other adult. You don't have a mother you can run to for help. You lost that privilege 12 years ago. The words were harsh, but they needed to be said. Daniel's eyes filled with tears. So you're just going to watch me struggle and do nothing? Yes. Because you watched me struggle for 12 years and did nothing. Because you need to learn to stand on your own feet without Kenneth or me or anyone else bailing you out. What if I can't? Then you can't. But at least you'll have tried. He was crying openly now. I don't know if I can do this. Then don't. Walk away now. I'll survive. I've been surviving without you for 12 years. I don't want to walk away. Then accept my terms. He wiped his eyes with his napkin. Once a month. Phone calls. No asking for help. And Dad isn't part of your life. Yes. That's really hard. Rebuilding trust is hard. If it were easy, it wouldn't mean anything. Daniel took a shaky breath. Okay. I'll try. I'll really try. We'll see. You don't believe me. I don't know you well enough anymore to believe you. You have to show me. He nodded. When's the first call? First Sunday of next month. I'll call you at 2 p.m. If you don't answer, I won't call again. I'll answer. And Daniel? If your father answers instead, or if I hear him in the background coaching you, we're done. This is between you and me. Nobody else. I understand. We finished our coffee in silence. When we stood to leave, Daniel hesitated. Can I hug you? I thought about it. Not yet. The hurt on his face was clear, but he nodded. Okay. I'll wait for your call. I watched him leave, then sat back down and ordered another coffee. Grace called 5 minutes later. How did it go? I gave him a chance. A small one. Are you sure that's wise? No. But I'm doing it anyway. What if he disappoints you again? Then at least I'll know I tried. After we hung up, I sat in that coffee shop for another hour, wondering if I'd just made a terrible mistake or taken the first step toward getting my son back. Only time would tell. The first Sunday of the next month arrived. I sat in my home office at exactly 2 p.m. with my phone in my hand, staring at Daniel's number. Part of me expected him not to answer. Expected Kenneth to have convinced him I wasn't worth the effort, or for Daniel to have simply moved on. I pressed call. He answered on the second ring. Mom? Hi, Daniel. You called. I wasn't sure you would. I said I would. The conversation was awkward at first. Stilted. We talked about the weather. About his job search. Surface things that didn't require real vulnerability. But he answered. And there was no sound of Kenneth in the background. When 30 minutes passed, I said I had to go. Can we talk longer next time? He asked. We'll see. The second month, the conversation was slightly easier. He told me about a job interview he'd had. I told him about a new product line the company was launching. The third month, he asked about my childhood. About his grandmother, my mother, who died before he was born. I told him stories. Real ones. And for the first time, it felt like we were actually talking instead of performing. Month 4, he asked if we could meet for coffee again. I hesitated. Is Kenneth still in town? No. He moved to Arizona last month. Said there was nothing keeping him here. How do you feel about that? Relieved, mostly. It's easier to think clearly when he's not around. We met at the same coffee shop. Daniel looked different. Thinner, but healthier somehow. Less defeated. I got a job, he said. Marketing position at a mid-sized firm. It's not glamorous, but it's stable. That's good. I got my own apartment too. Studio. Small. But it's mine. I'm proud of you. He smiled, and for a second, I saw the boy he'd been. Really? Really. We talked for an hour that time. About his work. About my business. About the years between us that still felt like a canyon. I'm in therapy, he said as we were leaving. Trying to work through why I let Dad manipulate me for so long. That's brave. It's hard. Really hard. But I'm learning things about myself. Not all of it good. Growth never is. Month 6, Daniel called on a Tuesday. Not a Sunday. I almost didn't answer, remembering my rule. But something made me pick up. I know it's not Sunday, he said immediately. And I know the rule. But I needed to tell you something and I didn't want to wait. What is it? Dad called. Wanted me to ask you for money. Said you owed him for the years he supported me. That I should guilt you into it. My chest tightened. And? I told him no. Told him I was building a relationship with you on my own terms, and he wasn't part of it. We're not speaking anymore. How do you feel about that? Sad. And relieved. And free. After we hung up, I sat in my office for a long time, feeling something shift inside me. Daniel had chosen me. Not my money. Not what I could give him. Me. A year after that terrible day when they'd shown up at my door, Daniel came to Sunday dinner at my house. Just the two of us. I cooked his favorite meal from childhood, pot roast with roasted vegetables. He brought wine and flowers. We sat at my large dining table, and it didn't feel empty anymore. I'm sorry, he said over dessert. For everything. I know I've said it before, but I mean it. I wasted 12 years being angry at the wrong person. You were manipulated by someone you trusted. That's not entirely your fault. I was an adult. I should have questioned more. Yes, but you were also hurt. I can understand that now. Can you forgive me? I thought about this carefully. I'm working on it. Forgiveness isn't instant. But I'm trying. That's more than I deserve. Maybe, but it's what I'm willing to give. 2 years after the confrontation, my business expanded internationally. Daniel mentioned during one of our calls that he had experience with international marketing. Are you offering to help? I asked. Only if you want. And only if you'd pay me what you'd pay anyone else. No family favors. I thought about it for a week. Talked to Grace. Finally decided to take a chance. I hired him as a consultant. He did excellent work. 6 months later, I offered him a full-time position. He accepted, but with conditions. I want to report to someone else. Not directly to you. And if my work isn't good enough, you fire me like you would anyone else. Deal. 3 years after that day in my foyer, Daniel stood in my living room at my annual Christmas party. Grace was there, along with employees from the company and friends I'd made over the years. Thank you, Daniel said quietly, finding me in the kitchen. For not giving up on me completely. Thank you for doing the work. A lot of people wouldn't have. I almost didn't. It would have been easier to stay angry, to blame you, to let Dad keep controlling my narrative. What changed? I got tired of being weak. Tired of letting other people define my reality. And I realized that if I wanted you in my life, I had to earn it. We stood together watching the party through the doorway. Are we okay? He asked. Really okay? We're getting there. We're not all the way healed. Maybe we never will be completely. But we're trying. That's enough for me. Grace came over with fresh drinks. Toast? We raised our glasses. To second chances, Daniel said. To boundaries, I corrected with a small smile. And knowing your worth. To family, Grace added. The ones we choose and the ones we rebuild. We drink. Kenneth never came back. I heard through Nina that he remarried again, someone he met in Arizona. I felt nothing hearing this. He was part of a past I'd moved beyond. As guests laughed and talked around us, I looked at my son, really looked at him. Not the angry 18-year-old who'd walked away. Not the desperate 30-year-old who'd shown up asking for handouts. But the man he'd become through hard work and honest self-reflection. We'd never get back those 12 years. The graduations I'd missed. The holidays apart. The milestones I wasn't there for. But we had now. And we were building something real. My mansion wasn't just a symbol of financial success anymore. It was a home. Filled with people who valued me for who I was, not what I could give them. The night Daniel and Kenneth had shown up at my door, I'd said no. I'd protected myself. Set boundaries. It had been the hardest and best decision I'd ever made. Because saying no to being used had opened the door to something genuine. Daniel had to learn to stand on his own. To question. To grow. To become someone worthy of a relationship with me. And I had to learn that loving someone didn't mean accepting their abuse. That forgiveness didn't require forgetting. That I could hold space for both grief and boundaries. As the party wound down and Daniel helped me clean up, he paused with a stack of plates. I'm proud to be your son, he said. Not because of this house or your money, but because of who you are. What you built from nothing. How strong you are. I'm starting to be proud of you too. Starting to. I smiled. You're getting there. He laughed. A real laugh. And I realized it was the first time I'd heard him truly happy in 12 years. The woman Kenneth had left broke and humiliated was gone. In her place was someone who knew her worth. Who'd built an empire. Who'd survived betrayal and abandonment and come out stronger. And the son who'd believed lies and cut her off had grown into a man who could admit his mistakes and do the hard work of change. We weren't perfect. Our relationship still had scars. But we were real. Honest. Building something that would last because it was founded on truth instead of manipulation. That night, after everyone left, I stood in my beautiful home and felt genuinely grateful. Not just for the success. Not just for the money. But for the strength it took to say no when it mattered most. And for the wisdom to say yes when the time was finally right.